All right, I've got 6:30. I'm Mayor Tome here to call to order this regular meeting for the Columbus Common Council. Today is February 15th, 2021. Pat, could you please start a roll call for us?
Adams,
Present.
Gray,
Present.
McCabe,
Here.
Myferone,
Here.
Reed,
Here.
Ryan, here, Tome.
Here. Thank you. If able, let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, this meeting has been noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. Next item is to approve the agenda for the evening. Unless there's any alterations or deletions, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Alder Pipeline will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Alder Ryan, second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Agenda's been approved. On to correspondence and communications. Did we have anyone signed up tonight, Pat? No. Okay, no one in advance. Joe, were you here for correspondence or communications? I'm just here. Okay, all right. All right, we will move on to the consent agenda then. On the consent agenda, we have the Council and Committee of the Whole meeting minutes for February 2nd, 2021, and I did not see any applications for operators licenses. Pat signifying there are none. Unless there's any questions on the minutes, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Alder Ryan, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
In seconds.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Seeing no opposition, the consent agenda has been approved. Move on to new business item number 1. Consider and take action on the Hibbard Street Final Assessment Report and Resolution 6-21, the amended resolution authorizing public improvements and levying special assessments against benefited properties. This was reviewed at the last Committee of the Whole. I don't believe there were many questions there. Again, this would be to approve the final assessment report and then approve the amended resolution to reflect the changes that were made by the council in the special assessments. If there's any questions, we've got Jason Letha with us via Zoom. Are there any questions? Seeing no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the final assessment report and resolution 6-21.
Alder Ryan,
Adams moves to approve the final special assessments for the Hibbard and Turner Street project.
In seconds.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the Hibbard Street Final Assessment Report and Resolution 6-21, amended resolution authorizing public improvements and levying special assessments against benefited properties. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, could we please take a roll call, Pat?
Gray,
Aye.
McCabe,
Aye.
Myferone,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Ryan,
aye.
Adams,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. Move on to new business item number 2. Consider and take action on the Rupert Milky Task Order 2021-01 for the Water Quality Trading Coordination. This was also reviewed at the last Committee of the Whole. This is for the ongoing water quality trading program for 2021 to work with the people that we've worked with the credits on. The budgeted amount is, or the task order amount is $7,624, which is budgeted for through the sewer budget. Current balance in that account is $25,000. Again, if there's any questions concerning the water quality trading coordination, Jason Leith is available. Are there any questions for Jason this evening? If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve task order 2021-01.
Alder Ryan, I'll make a motion to approve the Rupert Milkie Task Order 2021-01 Water Quality Trading Coordination.
McCabe seconds.
Got a motion and 2 seconds to approve the Rupert Milkie Task Order 2021-01 for the Water Quality Trading Coordination. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, could we please take a roll call, Pat?
McCabe,
Aye.
Pifferone,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Adams,
Aye.
Gray.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Move on to new business item number 3. Consider and take action on the Rupert Milkie Task Order 2021-02 for the 2021 street maintenance. Again, this task order would cover the project selection, design, and preparation of bid documents for crack and slurry sealing. Also update and submit the street inventory ratings in the Wisconsin Information System for local roads, which encompasses 28 miles of city streets, and assist city staff with the selection and oversight of the county aid project for 2021. This task order does go slightly over budget, as we had $12,000 budgeted. The task order is for $15,144, but again, we had the Whistler ratings, which needed to be budgeted for, which was missed through the budget process last year. If there's any questions on the task order, Jason Leith is available. Are there any questions for Jason? If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve task order 2021-02.
Adams moves to approve task order 2021-02.
Alder Pifferone will second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the task order with Rupert Milkie for street maintenance, task order 2021-02. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, could we please take a roll call, Pat?
Pifferone,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Adams,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Move on to item number 4. Consider and take action on the City of Columbus consent to the assignment of the developers agreement from ABS 1 LLC to ACS RBHS LLC for lots 1 and 5 through 10 in the Columbus Commerce Center. This was reviewed at our last committee of the whole meeting. Again, this just conveys the developers agreement that was in place within the TID from the prior owner to the new owner. If there's any questions on this, we have Matt Schreiber available. I don't believe there are many questions at the committee of the whole. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to formally consent to the assignment of the developers agreement from ABS 1 LLC to ACS RBHS LLC for lots 1 and 5 through 10 in the Columbus Commerce Center.
McCabe.
Adams moves to formally consent to the assignment of the developers agreement from ABS 1 LLC to ACS RBHS LLC for lots 1 and 5 through 10 in the Columbus Commerce Center.
McCabe seconds.
Motion from Adams, second from McCabe, to approve to the consent to the assignment of the developers agreement as read. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? With no opposition, motion passes. Thank you. Move on to item number 5. Consider and take action on Plan Commission recommendation to approve a conditional use permit for Gates Automotive at 200 Commerce Drive. This conditional use permit was a recommendation from the Plan Commission, was forwarded for review at the last committee of the whole meeting. I think there were a few questions that were answered in the conditional use permit. If there are any additional questions this evening, we've got Matt Schreiber with us, who saw this through the Plan Commission. Are there any questions for Matt this evening? Seeing none, if there are no questions, entertain a motion to approve the recommendation from the Plan Commission to approve a conditional use permit for Gates Automotive at 200 Commerce Drive.
McCabe will make a motion to approve of a conditional use permit for Gates Automotive at 200 Commerce Drive.
Alder Ryan will second.
Motion from McCabe, second from Ryan to approve the conditional use permit for Gates Automotive at 200 Commerce Drive. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? No opposition, motion passes. Thank you. Move on to item number 6, consider and take action on position description and recruitment plan for the wastewater treatment plant vacancy. And this was reviewed at the last committee of the whole. The job description has been updated with the retirement of John Niemer at the plant. It was time to update the job description. I believe the job has been put out since the last committee of the whole review on this. If there's any questions, we have Kyle here to answer them. Are there any questions on the job description or the hiring plan? Okay, if there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the position description and recruitment plan for the wastewater treatment plant vacancy.
Read motions to approve the description of the wastewater treatment plant operator, job description, and hiring plan.
Alder Piper will second that.
Get a motion in 2 seconds to approve the position description and recruitment plan for the wastewater treatment plant operator vacancy. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 7. Consider and take action on the city services bid for plumbing services for the year 2021 and 2022. This was reviewed at the last committee of the whole meeting as well. We received one bid for municipal plumbing services by the date that was published in the paper, and that would be for number 1 plumbing company from Columbus as the only contractor that submitted a sealed bid for the plumbing services contract. If there's any questions on this, we've got Dave Dernberg, and we also have Kyle here. Are there any questions on the plumbing services? If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to award the city services bid for plumbing services for 2021 and 2022 to number 1 plumbing company from Columbus.
Alder Ryan will make a motion to award the plumbing services bid to number 1 plumbing in Columbus for the year of 2021 and 2022.
McCabe seconds.
Motion from Ryan, second from McCabe to award the city's plumbing services for 2021 and 2022 to number 1 plumbing company from Columbus. Any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, let's please take a roll call on that, Pat.
Reed,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Adams,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
McCabe,
Aye.
Piperone.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 8. Consider and take action on Resolution 4-21, resolution declaring a continued state of emergency. I did notice when I first went through the packet that the two resolutions were in reverse order. Number 8 and number 9 were backwards, so let's make sure that we're working with the correct resolution. I think I'll turn it over to Administrator Ellison to kind of explain the next 2 items here, as they're kind of tied together, but a little different.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so the first item that we're looking at would be the resolution declaring a continued state of emergency. There is some background there that we've been under a state of emergency for several months now, sort of in a proactive manner to give us the flexibility to address any COVID impacts on a more real-time basis. So I think the real issue in the first item is whether or not the council wishes to extend the order for an additional amount of time, or if they wish to change it in some way or allow it to expire. In a related item, resolution number 5, is the resolution to approve and continue the administrative emergency order number 1. And that was the city's own face covering requirement for city buildings and city property only. And so one of the big benefits behind that was that there was some consistency, because I think there was one of those days where the legislature overturned the governor's order, the governor then signed another one, the legislature asked the courts to overturn it, and it's this back and forth that makes it very confusing for people to sort of anticipate what the day in, day out operations are going to be in city buildings. So I did highlight that this has no impact on private businesses and private properties in the city. And so based on how the first emergency declaration was structured, it gave me the ability to implement some of these emergency orders, which hold effect until the next regular meeting, which is tonight. So this is similar to the emergency declaration that the city council will have to determine if they wish to continue that order, if they wish to let it terminate, or if they want to amend it in some way. And these, I think in general, these are ultimately policy decisions of the governing bodies. So that being said, I'm here for any questions that you might have.
One question, Kyle, is it necessary for the council to approve both resolutions to continue? I mean, is this two separate? There's the state of emergency, and then there's also the administrative emergency order number 1. They would both need to be approved, or does one? I mean, if you do one and don't do the other, how does that work?
So starting with the continued state of emergency, basically we're under a state of emergency until February 28th, at which point it would expire if no other action was taken. So that would stand on its own and would have all the same provisions unless you amended it in some way. So if it was extended, it could be extended to any time, and then the relation to resolution number 5, continuing emergency administrative order number 1 relating to face coverings, that could be changed. That could be dropped right now if the council preferred, but it would only have whatever length of power as the emergency order or emergency declaration. So in essence, if you don't renew the state of emergency, the time limit where you would be able to issue these administrative or approve these orders would be kind of joined in that manner. So if you do want to keep the face order in play longer than February 28th, the emergency order would need to stay in play also.
Okay, thank you for the clarification on that. Obviously, this did need to come forward to the regular meeting for immediate action due to the expiration date on the existing emergency order that we had approved months ago. So any discussion from the council on this? Trina?
Reed would definitely like to extend both resolutions. And if I'm reading it right, does the extension go until May 5th?
I believe that's correct. Yep.
That sounds good.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm in agreeance of extending both till May 5th.
Okay. If there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion on Resolution 4-21, the resolution declaring a oh, sorry, Ian, didn't see your hand there.
I just wanted to make sure that anyone watching or anyone understands that our emergency order does not supersede the state's. So any more stringent guidelines given by the state under emergency does also apply to Columbus. So when the state urges everyone to wear a mask in any building, public or private, aside from your home, that does not exclude Columbus from it.
Great. Any other comments or questions from the council? All right. entertain any action on Resolution 4-21, item number 8.
Read motions to, extend resolution 4-21, resolution declaring and continuing state of emergency.
Alder Gray seconds.
Motion from Reed, second from Gray, to approve Resolution 4-21, resolution declaring a continued state of emergency through May, how did I lose the date here? May 5th? Okay. Any discussion on the motion? If there's no further discussion, could you please take a roll call, Pat?
Ryan,
Aye.
Adams,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
McCabe,
Aye.
Pifferone,
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, we'll move on to its companion then. Item number 9, consider and take action on Resolution 5-21, resolution approving and continuing administrative emergency order number 1. One thing that I did note on the administrative emergency order number 1 is that the date and the first entrant, whereas on January 12th, 2021, you had, I believe, was that supposed to be, let's see, identified its first case of the new COVID. I believe that was supposed to be 2020 instead of 2021. I could be wrong. I think you were probably trying to adjust dates to update it, but I believe that was when, that's from last year, a year ago. The very first entrance, yeah, right at the top.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Did you get that, Kyle? Okay.
Hold on here. In this, it says on January 12th, 2021, Wisconsin identified the first case of the new COVID-19 variant.
Oh, okay, all right. Maybe I did,
Yep.
okay. Oh, so you had it right, Kyle, sorry. Didn't read it closely enough. Okay, so we have the emergency order number 1 and then resolution 5-21, which would extend that emergency order. That would extend the emergency order through, is there a date?
I believe it, they would coincide at that point, so it would
With-
remain until midnight on May 5th, 2021.
Okay, I see that under item number 2 now, okay. Any questions on resolution 5-21 from the council? If there are no questions on 521, I'll entertain action on resolution 5-21, resolution approving and continuing administrative emergency order number 1.
Adams moves to approve resolution 5-21.
Alder Pifron seconds that.
Motion from Adams, seconds from Pifferon to approve resolution 5-21. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, could we please take a roll call, Pat?
Adams,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
McCabe,
Aye.
Pifferone,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Move on to item number 10, consider and take action on city claims in the amount of $1,135,854.16. And if you look at the packet, there is a $322,000 payment for the Hibbard Street project and also $676,000 for annual debt payments, which makes the number a little bit higher than normal. If there are any questions on the city claims? If there are none, I'll take a motion to approve city claims in the amount read.
Alder Pifron will make a motion to approve the city claims in the amount read.
Gray seconds.
A motion from Pifferon, second from Gray to approve the city claims in the amount of $1,135,854.16. Any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, Pat, could we please have a roll call?
Adams,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
McCabe,
Aye.
Pifferone,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Move on to report of city officers. I didn't have much this evening, so I'll take care of that and then turn it over to Administrator Ellefson. Obviously, we had our council meeting one day earlier because there's a spring primary election that's tomorrow. If you haven't already voted early absentee, the polls will be open tomorrow from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. at the Columbus Senior Center located at 125 North Dickinson Boulevard. Bring your voter identification to vote and proof of residence for same-day registration. That's all I had.
All right,
It's all
thank you.
yours.
First, we've got several open positions that I wanted to mention that we're recruiting right now, and I just wanted to remind everyone of those. There is a part-time municipal court clerk that's open currently. That closes tonight right before midnight, so there are only a few hours left on that one. And then we also have the two positions at the wastewater utility, where we have an operator A and an operator B position, and those are scheduled to end next week on February 22nd. So if you know anyone who might be interested, please be sure to mention it and pass it around. Hopefully we get a really solid recruitment and have lots of good candidates to choose from. Also, the Highway 89 project, getting that road, kind of redone and resurfaced, and that project and the planning for it is continuing. And the DOT has sent over a few permits that they are looking to have the homeowner sign regarding some conflicts in the right-of-way. There's really only one property that has some small fencing that is encroaching and has to be removed. The rest of them, the DOT has created some permits that are basically revocable in future if we need that right-of-way, but will allow the obstructions to remain where they are for right now. There's also was a shift in the stormwater plans, and that they've engaged a different location for the stormwater management, and with that they require another appraisal, and that increased the nominal fees for appraisal, and added a few weeks of time for the work to be completed, as well as a small amount of cost to the overall contract. It's still within the maximum approval that we have, though, so we should be fine that way. And unless things change, the DOT's communication regarding the permits indicates that the construction is planned for spring of 2022. So we will have that work starting very soon. Finally, I wanted to pass along that the Cable Commission and the Rotary Club have organized a candidate forum for those that are running for local elected office with the city. The forum for mayoral candidates is March 3rd at 6:30, and for aldermanic candidates, the forum is March 10th at 6:30. Those will be broadcast on Channel 980, and you can view them live online as well. You can find more information on the Columbus Cable Channel Facebook page. And that's all I have.
Alder Piper makes a motion to adjourn.
Alder Ryan, second.
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? We'll stand adjourned for a few minutes and return with the committee of the whole meeting. Thank you.
7:03 PM here in City Hall chambers. Pat, would you please take the roll call?
Adams,
Present.
Gray,
Present?
McCabe,
Here.
Pifferone,
Here?
Reed,
Here.
Ryan,
Here.
Tome.
Here.
Okay, this meeting has been noticed with state statutes and local ordinances. Number 3, if there are no amendments, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Alder Gray will move to approve the agenda.
Alder Piper will second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion approved, agenda's approved. Number 4, citizen comments. I don't have anybody signed up. Pat's saying no. So we'll move on then to number 5, department reports. Within the packet this evening, we have December 2020, we have the treasury report, and for January 2021, we have DPW, fire, library, Lifestar, media coordinator, police, and treasurer reports. Were there any questions or comments from council on the department reports?
Can I
Pete,
just make one comment?
absolutely. Go ahead.
Can you hold on for 1 second and let me wait for this phone call?
Sure.
Sorry, I'm at another person's house and the phone's ringing. Okay.
Okay.
Regarding the police report, in terms of the opioid overdoses and the administering of Narcan, seems like since I've been on the council, it's been kind of like a steady drip of opioid. Nothing big, but it's been kind of a constant. A couple here, a couple there. I know there's nothing you can do to really stop it, but or perhaps there is. That's why I just kind of wanted to bring it up. And we're not a very big community. I don't know what we could do about it, but it's kind of distressing to see it happening again and again. I know we have a huge opioid problem in the country, but yeah, it just pains me to see that in our community. So I don't know if there's like any support group or something that we can do for these people, but I just wanted to bring it up and just draw attention to it.
Thanks, Pete. I feel like that's a question that you could reach out to Dennis Weiner, the chief of police, and ask potentially him, ask him what, if there are any programs or strategies or anything that he thinks, any ideas that he has, and work with him on that.
I can certainly pass that along and have him get directly in touch with Alder Adams.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council on the department reports? Okay, hearing none. We'll move on then to number 6, which is review and discuss temporary staffing at the wastewater treatment plant. For that, we are going to have Administrator Ellison.
Thank you. As I mentioned in my report, we have both positions currently advertised for the Operator A, which is the top-level position there, and then an Operator B, which is one of 2 positions. So we're down to a single Operator B right now, and I think we covered that a little bit at the last meeting. So we've been spending a lot of time sort of developing the solution, short-term and medium-term and longer-term. Because it's a licensed, certified operation, there are a lot of DNR regulations that go into play, and between water and light and public works staff and the existing wastewater staff, we felt like we were really on the right path. We had, kind of that all hands on deck, and we had good plans to keep the plant running and keep everything going smooth. We've, identified a lab to do some contract testing for us, things like that. Then the beginning of last week, we found out that that would satisfy most of the needs for the DNR, but not all of them. The most significant is that we need to have an experienced operator in charge, and that's the person whose name is really kind of the chief certified official that would be and the DNR files and who they would be looking to make sure that the plant is running, according to specifications and using all the right methods. So that got a little more complicated. There are private testing or private companies that do some of these things to ensure the testing is done correctly, but also every other municipal wastewater plant has staff, serving in that role. The two most likely options, I think, moving forward in the short term to get that operator in charge will be either a local municipality, and Beaver Dam has currently expressed some potential as having the ability to spend some time in our plant and make sure that the operation is running as intended. And then the other one would be Midwest Contract Operators. Unfortunately, they're out of the Fox Valley. And like everyone, they're under a pinch too, where they don't have enough staff that they would like. So they said they could help us, but it would really be truly helping us. They don't. They're not that interested in the short-term arrangement. They have their own long-term commitments. So we're kind of working down that path to see if Beaver Dam can work out for us. It's not full days. It's not full weeks. It's portions of days. To make sure that certain tasks are being done correctly. So we're working on that. In the meantime, John Namer is retiring, but he's still on payroll for now. And he's agreed to come back in a very limited part-time role over the next several weeks. That will get us into early or mid-March, but he does have a hard retirement date coming. And once that date hits, he's really gone for 75 days. We can't have any employment relationship with him. So we'll need to have a solution in place by early to mid-March. So as we work out the final details of this, I'm hopeful that the Committee of the Whole will let us move this to the next regular agenda where we can have the solution either being a municipal arrangement where we likely cover all their employment costs, the mileage to get here and things like that, or a private arrangement which right now, he's saying just off the top of his head, it'd be about $100 an hour, and that would be from the time he leaves the Fox Valley. So that's not really an ideal setup, but if we can't work something out with Beaver Dam or as a backup, potentially Sun Prairie, we're really going to have our hands tied because the DNR won't let us operate without an operator in charge. So that's kind of the update I have right now. I'll answer any questions I can, and Jason also might have some knowledge if there's any other questions I can't answer.
Well, thanks to John Namer for stepping up and using some of that vacation time. Thank you, John, to at least help us out in the meantime. And thank you, Kyle, for continuing your efforts and trying to mitigate the issues.
I know I'd be out of line saying, but I can't stress enough the severity of this situation.
I got a quick question, Kyle. When you say the DNR won't let us operate,
Yeah.
what does that mean for the city exactly?
It's not as clear cut as they flip a switch and you can't accept wastewater after a certain time. But if we don't get an arrangement in place in the next several weeks before John moves into the retirement where he can't serve in that role, there could be sanctions, there could be penalties. I think what we're doing now, we're on the right path because we are working to try to identify all these different solutions and get something in place. But we are on a short time frame, and we just don't have the ability to bump this back to like April or something like that. The DNR engineer was pretty clear that this is not an option, that we have to have that operator in charge.
Do you feel like it might be even best to have a emergency meeting before the next one, as far as the timeline goes?
If we're going to meet on March 2nd, I believe it is, John should still be in play at that point, so we should still be good. If it goes past that, or if there's, the potential for a lot of question about, what's the right method, then that might not be a bad idea to have a special meeting. I think we're still on the right path, and Beaver Dam having already expressed some interest, I think there's some good potential there. And as a backup, the more expensive option is still there, that they would help us. It would just be far more costly.
And I'm sorry, this would just be until we get a full-time hire on as a operator A, was it? Right? Or-
Operator A, and based on the qualifications, they should have the experience, and they should ideally have the certifications. There is, I think, a 12-month period for you to get all the certifications you need. Say you came from a plant with a slightly different setup. But I also heard in the conversation with the DNR engineer that, she anticipates that if you get someone who's on the, earlier part of their career and doesn't have all that experience, that you might need to have that relationship in place past when they start, and almost as a mentor type relationship, and continuing, potentially into next year. It really just depends on kind of the qualifications of the person you get and how well they understand the process.
That makes sense. Alder Pryfron?
Granted, hopefully this will not happen for another 40 years, but unfortunately, you never can guarantee when people are going to either have to leave for a different reason or not be happy, whatever. So might it be wise to have a little bit of duplicity and have more than one person be certified for the position? So if Bob steps out, and automatically we have, we automatically have a built-in person that is able to fill in and not have to worry about, this emergency punt situation.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And so we have 3 total positions down there right now. John, obviously, we had identified his retirement coming up, and then he retired on Friday, and on Sunday we got the 2 weeks' notice from the person who had all the certifications and likely could have served as that operator in charge. He'd been there for several years, leaving us with just one person who started early in 2020, and because of the pandemic, hadn't been through any of the real training, certification. DNR really shut all that down. So kind of a perfect storm. But I think we do have some opportunities with Water and Light, and we've talked about that potentially they have their water staff that they're going to be working to get their emergency certifications along with our staff member. But there's some benefit to the city, and maybe we should be looking at an arrangement where we pay some extra money from the city to the Water and Light employee to maintain a certification they don't need, just so that they can have that backdrop to step in and help us. I think that would probably be money well spent.
Agreed. Alder Adams?
Just kind of going off of emergency certification, how long could we operate with somebody with the emergency certification before the DNR would clamp down on us?
So the emergency certification would not be one that would likely qualify for the operator in charge. The operator in charge we're an advanced plant based on our volume, so you need to have several years of experience to get to that advanced classification. So it would take time to even get there for that. The operator in charge, and why they don't have to be there, 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday, they're really there as kind of the oversight to make sure that the testing is done correctly, the lab work is done appropriately reported, documented, and that everything is kind of done at the right time and the right method. They're essentially the internal quality control. So the people that are getting their emergency certifications are likely not going to be able to serve anytime soon in that operator in charge role.
So Kyle, you're telling us that you feel optimistic that Beaver Dam will hopefully be able to help us out in term. And go ahead.
Yeah, they've been very willing to help, but I mean, they have limitations too. And early on, we were very uncertain as far as, is this full 8-hour days? We need someone in there literally one 8-hour day every week, because then Beaver Dam would be put in a situation where they didn't have someone for a full day. And that was sort of a bridge too far. So I think that they're very willing to help as long as it works out for them. And we would be in the same boat. We'll help, but our operation has to be maintained first. So.
And the job listing that we posted will end when?
Next Monday, And we do have multiple applications right now, so
Okay.
we don't have, a large stack, but there's been interest and there's been applications, which is encouraging. So hopefully that trend continues and we get many more.
And like many other positions, I would imagine that's posted also on like the League of Municipalities website. and
Correct.
places. Okay. Okay. Ian, go ahead.
So out of those applications, has anyone reviewed any of them at all to see if any of them have the necessary certifications to step into the role that we need right away? Like, do we know if that small stack of applications, are any of them qualified to step in and meet the requirements?
So we don't really fully evaluate them. We wait till we get all of them and then kind of comparatively analyze all of them. I do know that at least one of the applicants has experience in wastewater, but I'm not sure the total amount of experience that we have at our disposal right now.
And how long have we known that John was retiring, and was there a good reason why we didn't advertise or try to fill his position prior to him being physically gone?
Yeah, there's a couple reasons. One was we had a relatively strong bench strength. The number 2 employee out there had years of experience and, would likely have been a candidate that would be very strong to move up into the lead position. Additionally, we just had the public works director starting, and as he's building his team out there, we thought it made sense for him to be involved in the position description and the recruitment. And then we had the unexpected departure of an employee that kind of came without any warning. So that's kind of the circumstances that we find ourselves in. And John also has some run-out time, based on being here 40 years, that, he's still on payroll, so it's a little complicating to recruit for a position that you still have active. It did not work out this time. I mean, it has gotten far more complicated than I think would have been anticipated.
But for future, is there a reason that we couldn't have advertised or tried to fill the position earlier when we knew he was retiring? I mean, having someone come on if they need some training or something while the existing person is still there is not a bad thing.
Correct. This would be someone that would have multiple years of experience, but they would need to learn the plant. Having a second staff member there with several years of experience would have really, that should not have been an issue, because the person would at the advanced level would have all their testing and certification kind of down for the most part. It would be more about learning our plant, and we had the staff available to do that. So we could have hired it without waiting for the direct supervisor. It just didn't seem like the timing at that point needed to be any different. There was just information that we had no way to suspect what was going to occur in the timing and the way it happened.
I understand a lot of things that were unexpected have happened, as they have happened for about a year now. We've been in some very challenging times. What I'm asking is there a reason why we should not make a policy to start the recruitment process while the existing person is still there when we know they're retiring, so that circumstances like this would be circumvented?
That's something we can do. I think the retirement notice that we had, we knew that there was the potential, I think just based on the length of service and the age, but we did not get notice until just, I think it was in January that we got notice. So, I mean, we did move quickly once it was official, but without getting notice of an actual retirement impending, we had nothing to act on.
Okay, that helps. That was part of my first question. Thank you.
Well, if there are no more questions or comments,
Okay,
oh, go ahead, Trina.
well, just wondering, is the DNR now offering all of the needed courses? Um, will that be, continued pickleball?
So I think the DNR has a modified option available, and we're exploring it with the water and light staff and our current wastewater staff. We're now meet their criteria for emergency testing, so we're now able to have our staff register for those testing sessions. Unfortunately, I think the beginning of March was one of the very first times they could get in after they became eligible. And then there's only a certain number of tests you can take during each session. So there's several certifications that they need to accumulate, so it could take several months to get all of them. But the DNR has a lot more flexibility on that. It's the operator in charge that seems to be the most urgent thing that the wastewater engineer that's overseeing our operation, that is her primary concern, I think.
Thank you. So for the operator in charge, we're basically just looking for an experienced point person.
Yeah, it's someone with several years of experience in the specific certifications that are necessary to run the plant. And it actually will say on their certification advanced. And then they have to be able to really evaluate the operation and the testing and the collection of the samples and some of the equipment, make sure that the temperatures are correct and things are taken in the right order. So that's really the critical piece. We have the staffing need that's important to us, and we have to get fixed, and that will help us accumulate the experience. But DNR short term is very keen on that operator in charge being arranged.
It's interesting that there are doesn't seem to be very many existing interim companies that provide interim services for something like this, when it's so greatly important. Kind of mind-boggling. Any other questions or comments? Mayor Tome?
Just one comment, I guess, based upon some of the comments I've heard from the council and including Joe as well. I think any utility tries to have built-in redundancies in equipment and personnel, and I know from serving on the Water and Light Commission, you certainly want to be sure that you're building a bench of staff, that you're not left in a situation like this. And I think just having the two more lead operators leave within a couple weeks is what's created this. But I do think having some redundancy or maybe having some cross-training between the utilities is a benefit. If we could have a water worker trained in for wastewater in the event of something like this or an emergency situation, and vice versa, to have a wastewater worker maybe trained as a water worker if someone has a medical condition and has to leave for 3 months, then we have some coverage there too. But I like the idea of working together to kind of create that redundancy and plan ahead if at all possible. So the other question is just what you think we're going to anticipate for the first meeting in March is whether, I guess depends on the route that this takes, whether it's going to be approving a contract with someone or another community, but I think it's going to kind of vary on what the discussions are in the next few weeks.
Correct. I think if it's the Midwest contract operators, I anticipate they have a standard contract that would detail how much we pay them and what services they're going to provide. If it's with the city of Beaver Dam, it could be in intergovernmental agreement, could be a memorandum of understanding, and just with we're going to invoice you this much per hour, and that is what it is. Could be more lengthy as far as if there's liability concerns, and so then that would require Paul Johnson to get involved and just make sure that it's meeting our needs as well as the city of Beaver Dam. So it looks promising, but I also know that there's a lot of boxes that we have to check first.
Okay. I just wanted to bring that up because I don't know what this would appear like. But obviously with the critical nature of this, if we need to navigate the next agenda to, kind of maybe reconvene back and to take action on something, I hope that the council is supportive of doing whatever we need to procedurally to make sure that we've got things covered once we find out which path we're going to have to take between now and the next meeting. So thanks for your work on this, Kyle.
My only last question is, when do we expect to know how many hours or a day or days a week we need this person for the interim? So that we can like coordinate with Beaver Dam or whomever to try and get this taken care of in the interim? Like, right now, it seems like we don't even know what we really need at a minimum.
So, based on the conversation I had with the DNR doesn't set any minimum hours. They really push it back on the operator to say, you're going to put your name and your certification on the line. You need to figure out how many hours. And so it could be more hours early on and then taper off, but it's really going to be determined by that operator in charge, kind of looking at what we're doing, how we're doing it, and how comfortable they are in the quality and consistency of our work. So it's probably going to be more hours to start with, fewer hours as they move on, and the DNR even alluded to at some point in the future, if it's a longer-term arrangement, that just being available by telephone would be important, but they wouldn't necessarily need to be in plant for as many hours months down the road. So I think it's up to the operator what they need to feel comfortable about how we're doing things.
So is that maybe something that like John could speak with whomever from Beaver Dam to try and come up with a plan of how much we would need them here so they can establish whether or not they can help us so we know if that's a viable option?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Once we get Beaver Dam kind of committed to being part of the solution, I think John would be important to meet with them, show them the plant, show them how we do things, but then also kind of explain what the strengths are that we have, but also the areas that we haven't been able to work on because now we have a relatively junior staff. So John would definitely be a big part of that.
Okay. If there are no more comments or questions, we can move on to the next item. You be okay with that? Okay. Thank you, Kyle. We'll move on then to number 7, which is review and discuss the Columbia County 2021 hazmat agreement. This is kind of an annual agreement we have with Columbia County. And Kyle, did you want to take this one?
I believe this is just a formality that we do, and it's money that is budgeted, and so this is just kind of an agreement that we do every year for the hazmat agreement we have with Columbia County.
Are there any questions on the hazmat agreement for 2021? Mayor Tome?
Do we normally receive one from Dodge County as well annually? We do not? Okay.
Okay, if there are no questions or comments on the hazmat coverage for 2021 for Columbia County, then we can go ahead and move this forward to the next regular meeting for approval. Hearing none, we will move forward then to number 8, which is to review and discuss the status of the transportation utility development. And for that this evening, I believe Jason Letha is going to head off the discussion. Jason. Hi, Jason.
Otherwise, I can.
Oh, did you want to start?
Jump in
Okay.
just with some timeline information, if that's okay?
Sure, sure.
All right, thank you. So I attached the timeline that was adopted previously into the cover memo. We did mail out a few thousand letters to utility customers, trying to notify them of the upcoming meetings and some of the core information there. And so we spent a lot of time on that on Friday, stuffing those and getting those mailed. So that should be hitting mailboxes relatively soon. And I think Rooker DeMilky will be talking about some of the calculations that they've done with some more data about the parcels. So we've been working on the public information meetings, which are going to be coming up, I believe, February 25th and March 11th. So we're trying to get that information out there for everyone so that they can be, as fully informed as possible, have the opportunity to ask a lot of questions and understand exactly the mechanics of what we're trying to accomplish, not only with transportation and the expenses, but also the flexibility then it gives us to address stormwater needs in the short term. So, anyone have any questions on the timeline?
Just to be clear, in the packet here, it says February 26th, which is a Friday. Is it the 20, but you mentioned the 25th for
Yes,
the public
that,
information.
so that goes back to the original plan with Rupert and Milky. They were really hitting weeks, and so it's the week ending February 26th.
Okay.
Once we found the availability of the council chambers and the staff that we needed, February 25th and March 11th, I believe, are the dates.
Correct. I'll jump in here next.
Okay.
I appreciate you bringing that up. We certainly wanted to make sure that everybody's aware this is on a Thursday night for the public informational meetings. Just a little bit of foreshadowing at those meetings. We're going to have a public comment form available for people to fill out. Certainly people can submit their questions. We'll try and address those. So it's, we know that there's some challenge with being online here. But certainly we're going to try and do our best to get information out. We will have a presentation for part of the informational meeting where we will go through kind of a set presentation that will kind of cover and lay out what the transportation utility is and cover some of those ideas that Kyle was just referring to. The second meeting will actually be very similar in content, but it may include some additional content. We want to overlap it for those people that weren't able to attend or haven't got a chance maybe to dig into it. So there will be some redundant information there, so we just want some people to know that, but not give up on the second meeting, because we'll have more detail and more information rolling out, because we'll be a little further along in the development. So again, I think it's just important for everybody to know when we get into those public informational meetings, we're trying to just kind of hit all the highlights and make sure that we're getting the same message pushed out on both dates. As for some stuff coming up also that's on the kind of timeline here, two things that we're going to want to make the council aware of is coming. One is an ordinance, so we will have a draft ordinance that will be drafted. We've been working on that between Attorney Johnson and Rupert Milky and city staff. We've kind of been through the first review. There's a couple critical parts to that we're going to want to go through in a little more detail. So for the next meeting, what we'd like to have available for you is some information relating to credits or how we're going to address special assessments. The idea here obviously is that this transportation utility will create funds or dollars that can offset some of those costs that are currently being special assessed. And then obviously as part of the special assessment, the question would become, are those who have received special assessments in the last, say, 5 to 10 years, given credit moving forward against their fee for a period of time until maybe a period of time has elapsed. And again, I think right now we're thinking maybe that's 10 years. So if you were special assessed 9 years ago, you'll get a credit for 1 year, and then the fees will basically kick in going forward. So again, those are all kind of alternatives on the table. We just want to kind of throw something out there to start the discussion with the council. The other thing is that when we talk about special assessments, internally we've talked with staff, and there's a few things that we'd like to kind of address. We do think that there still are policies in place today that may exist after this transportation utility. For example, we do assess a part of the storm sewer when a road's reconstructed. This transportation utility isn't necessarily raising the funds for that, so that is something that we'll have to consider if that's something that would carry on. I know that's not a large fee on those reconstruction projects or a large percent of those special assessments, but we're definitely going to want to talk a little bit about what kind of stays in the policy and what might drop out. Another thought would be, the residential driveway aprons. Again, those are aprons specific to the homeowner. They're replacing those right now at 100% assessment cost. So again, ideas such as, should that remain in the potential policy for special assessment going forward? But we do know things like curb and gutter likely will be coming out because we can fund that with the transportation utility. We know sidewalks likely could come out. But we do have a question about sidewalk special assessment in general under 86. We think that reconstructing sidewalk is different than asking a developer to put in new sidewalk or asking somebody maybe to place some sidewalk in front of their property, so we'll have to decide if that's part or covered under the transportation utility, or if we want to keep that independent, going forward. So there's a bunch of things there, that we'll be talking about. We'll have some additional information pulled forward, for the next meeting, so you can kind of take a look at that, and we can kind of further kick that down the road. I think as the staff has reviewed this, we've kind of agreed that some of these decisions would be nice to make sure that we've adopted in the ordinance. That makes it more formal, makes it more finalized going forward, so people know exactly what is part of the transportation utility and what isn't. So again, those kind of go hand in hand. So you'll see much more on the ordinance and special assessments as we kind of go into the next COW for discussion. Certainly, we're not looking for a decision then, but we certainly want to get that information out and talk about it early, because we know those are tough decisions for you guys. So, any questions on that? Okay, good. I'll turn it over to Ed. Ed has been cranking away diligently here on getting the rate structure set up, and he's got some information to summarize for you guys tonight, just to kind of let you know where we're at and kind of how things are shaping up. And if you have any questions for Ed, feel free to ask him, and or if you want to circle back, hopefully I can answer them as well.
Great. Thanks, Jason. Excuse me, did you all receive a copy of the draft utility fees in your packets? You have a copy of that? Okay. Well, let me explain, high level, I wanted to explain anyway conceptually what these fees are, and then we'll talk a little bit about the numbers, where they're shaping up. So, like any utility fees, they're split into two. There's a base or a fixed charge, and then there's a variable or volume-based charge. The fixed component you can think of sort of like on your water bill, where you have a meter charge based on the size of your meter. And in the case of the transportation utility, this fee is structured to recover the cost of administering the utility itself, which includes billing and the time of the city employees working on updating utility rates. So that's the fixed component. Everybody pays the same rate for that piece of the puzzle. So we take all the fixed costs and we divide it by the total number of customers, and that's the fixed component. Right now, it's shaping up to be about $1 a month for all customers. Then the variable portion, or what's known as a usage fee, is based on the number of estimated trips each parcel generates. And so what we do is we take a look at all the parcels within Columbus, estimate how many trips come out of each and every parcel, and then total up all those trips. We take our variable costs and divide it by all the number of trips, and then proportion out the costs in proportion to how many trips come from each parcel. And I've gotten really well acquainted with Columbus as part of this project, because I've looked at each and every parcel, not only in the GIS, but also Google Maps, and I've talked with Jason as well to learn what each parcel is used for, and that determines how many trips come out of it. There's a collection of hundreds of studies, traffic studies that have been done on various land uses that we use to match up each individual parcel to how many trips are being generated. And from there, we take those costs and allocate them out. And right now, we're estimating each monthly residents will, every month, each resident will pay about $4 for the usage fee. So a total of about $5 right now for each residence. From there, for the non-residential properties, it really depends on what the use of the property is. Those fees are allocated out accordingly. So that's the fee structure in a nutshell. Any questions on that before I talk about potential impact to state aid?
Yeah, Ed, I'll jump in here. And that structure that Ed is talking about is based off that initial assumption of what the road costs were, and then we inflated that into current dollars. And I think we're looking at the transportation utility generating about 50% of that total need, which was, because we understand that the transportation utility is going to fund 100% of the transportation need, but it's going to fund up to approximately 50%. What was the number, Ed, that you're targeting? 325,000?
Yeah, 330,000 roughly.
330,000. Okay. So if you, as a council, would look at the draft numbers and say, we'd like to target a round number of, say, 350,000, that fixed fee that Ed talks about would remain similar, but then everybody's proportionally might jump up a little bit higher. I think initially when we started this conversation, we had talked about maybe having that $7 a month range in there, or that would have been the fixed fee plus the usage fee. Now Ed's talking about 5. There was a drop because we pulled in all of the tax exempt parcels. So a lot of that kind of offset that differential. We also kind of looked at it much more closely per trip used. So that shifted some of the cost off the residential properties into some of the higher traffic generating properties, maybe say a gas station or, a trucking facility or something may pay a higher cost. So again, this is draft right now, but I think Ed's kind of summary shows that there's some variability in this for us to look at. For the next meeting, we'll also have these draft numbers kind of laid out for everybody so you can take a little closer look at the summary, what Ed's going through. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood, wait a minute, I heard a number before, how come that's different? So, but it does kind of factor into the detail that's been going into the calculations. So.
Yeah, thank you, Jason.
Um,
You don't have any questions?
Oh, yeah, Ed, just out of curiosity, I'm curious as to not so much larger businesses like gas stations and grocery stores and things like that, but I'm wondering more or less about smaller shops like the downtown area and how that is
Yeah, good question.
equated.
Yeah, so when we look at those downtown stores, say we're looking at an antique store or a hair salon, those have much lower foot traffic and vehicle traffic associated with them, according to the studies. And we're also taking a look at per 1,000 feet of gross floor space. And so a lot of these businesses are very small to begin with, and then you add on top of that a very low number of trips. Some of these businesses downtown are probably going to pay less than your typical residential customer in fees as a result of that. Your restaurants and bars might pay a little more, but an antique store would pay probably quite a bit less.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for Ed or Jason?
Oh, sorry, yeah, I just got a question to piggyback on that. Will you have any hard numbers for the smaller businesses to say that at the city open meetings?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, just to piggyback off Katie's question, will you have any hard numbers as far as like the smaller businesses downtown go, and how it'll affect them?
Yeah, we'd like to have some examples by the public information meetings that we can display, show residents what they will probably pay if a utility is adopted, as well as various businesses and non-commercial uses as well, so people get a sense for the magnitude of the cost.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments for Ed or Jason? Mayor Tom?
Just a general comment. I was actually looking at the city website today, and I would encourage people to look for the links on there. I think there's a lot of really good kind of preliminary information about the hows and whys of how this is all working out, but I think that there's a lot of answers to, the frequently asked questions that's on the city website, so I'd encourage people to try to look at that. I know that the mailer is coming out as well for the public information meetings, but there's a lot of good information that's on the city website right now.
Okay. Ian Gray?
Just a quick question. So I know right now everything is not super in-depth yet for cost. Do we intend to have any sort of credits or things for, like, say, a business operates in a space but they don't really accumulate any foot traffic? Or, I mean, during COVID, a lot of people stopped going to work entirely and work out of home. and they have a far smaller traffic imprint than their neighbor who, makes 4 or 5 trips a day, and they make 4 or 5 trips a week. Do we intend on any credits or differentials for those people, or any way for them to lower what they're paying, or do they need proof of some nature? Like, what do we intend? These are definitely things that are going to come up during public meetings.
Yeah, good question. Right now, our thinking with the residential portion of the fees is we want to keep them modest enough that they're not a burden, overly burdensome to any residential customer. And in terms of the non-residential properties, we do want to take a close look to make sure we're very carefully managing use with actual traffic as best we can. And that's why we're running some properties past Matt to make sure we're understanding their use properly.
And I also think, to answer that, I know that we have built into the draft ordinance some recourse for those companies or individuals to, I guess, object to their fee. Some of the things that obviously we'll be looking at is for maybe some larger businesses, we require some type of traffic study to show us that, their use, say, a commercial gas station that's, 4,000 square feet. We know, based on all these trip studies, which have been developed, is called the ITE Trip Generation Manual through the Federal Highways Administration. They'll tell us how many trips that gas station on average should create. If there is a situation that for whatever reason they're creating fewer or more trips, an actual specific transportation study, we would accept some results of that to adjust their rates accordingly. So again, I think that there's certainly some avenues for people to approach and say, I have a unique situation, I want you to reconsider, I want an adjustment here. And I think those are things that we're building in a mechanism for those people to pursue.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are any other questions, or if there aren't any other questions, we can go ahead and move on. Thank you for the update.
Thanks.
We're going to move on now to number 9, which is review and discuss Plan Commission's recommendation regarding certified survey map application of the Columbus Elementary School at 200 Fuller Street. And for that, this evening we have Matt Schreiber. Hi, Matt.
Good evening. So the next few items are all related to the school and the referendum that was passed and the subsequent projects. So the first is the CSM. So council's aware that last fall we went through a process to vacate the right of way that went through this the middle of the school property. That kind of started this process to do a CSM to do a lot combination. So the right of way was vacated back in November. Since then, the school has acquired any other property that was part of the right of way vacation. They've given us evidence that they own everything in the proposed CSM. And one other thing to note, on the CSM, it does show the floodplain as we requested. They have a conditional LOMA from FEMA. So basically what that means is they submitted their plans and FEMA's approved of their plans. When the school is completed, they have to go back out and shoot the grades of the existing building. And once they shoot those grades, they have to resubmit them to LOMA for a final approval. One thing to note is staff's looked at this, and it is 2 feet above the base flood elevation out there, so everything should be fine as far as the FEMA and LOMA go long term. And the other thing I wanted to note is the CSM shows storm sewers in 2 separate locations going to the school's property. Just one thing to note, the one that is kind of running through the middle of the property that is going to be relocated around the edge of the school, that was one that there was an existing storm sewer that was not in a recorded easement. Somehow they built it sometime in the 60s, we think. And so that's cleaning up some past projects that weren't documented. So the school mapped out the easement. One of the things I CSM forward, that we also move forward the easement to approve that easement, and then also, I have shared that with the superintendent of schools, and I'll give that to them so the school board can approve the easement agreement as well. So with that, any questions on the CSM?
Seeing no questions. If there are no questions for Matt, we can actually, I guess, move forward to the next, move that forward to the next regular meeting and move on then to number 10, which is to review and discuss the Plan Commission's recommendation regarding the conditional use permit application, or I'm sorry, I just read the same one over again. Number 11, review and discuss Plan Commission's recommendation regarding the conditional use permit application for the Columbus High School at 1164 Farnham Street.
So yeah, on Thursday night, the 12th, actually the 11th, excuse me, we had a public hearing for the conditional use permit, and then Plan Commission did make a recommendation of approval of the conditional use permit to Common Council. During the public notice period and during the public hearing, we did not receive any comments either in favor or opposition of the project. Really, this is one where staff has been working closely with the project management team for the school district. We've probably been having bi-weekly meetings since just before Christmas, working through site plan issues. The site plan basically has addressed most of the comments that we've received from the city engineer. I'm waiting for a final set of plans that will be submitted to council before final approval, either assuming they'll move forward on March 2nd. I guess with that, I'll take any questions from council. And a lot of the things I mentioned under the CSM obviously apply to the elementary school site as well. I mean, the LOMA is very, very key to the addition to the elementary school. So I guess with that, any questions?
Seeing no questions. Okay. So we move that forward as well and move on then. Thank you, Matt. We'll move on then to number 12, which is convene to close session for, oh, I'm sorry. Did I read that one. Okay.
I think you went from number 9 to 11. Maybe did we miss 10 or something?
Maybe I did miss 10. That's what they're worded like exactly the same, so I apologize. So number 11 is review and discuss Plan Commission recommendation regarding the conditional use permit application for the Columbus High School at 1164 Farnham Street. Yes, I did read that one.
All right. So the high school is also, much like the elementary school, they needed a conditional use permit for the addition. Essentially, they're adding well, compared to the elementary school, it's a smaller addition in the front of the building, kind of as the horseshoe driveway comes up to the front of the building, basically adding more of a gathering space to the front of the building, and they also include for a loading dock, which that was one of the things that was discussed at the Plan Commission based off of some comments that we had from staff, was technically what they show on the plans is the angle at which the driveway meets the Farnham Street is roughly 50 degrees, and per code, it is supposed to be anywhere from 75 to 90 degrees, the intersection with Farnham Street. The one thing we've kind of determined as we were looking through it is really Plan Commission is not the entity that can give any sort of exemption for that. It ends up going to the COW, because the COW essentially replaced the Board of Public Works. So under Chapter 86, I mean, plant, or up to, excuse me, the cow to basically approve it as it is or ask for an amendment to the plan. Other than that, all the other issues have been met, as far as, staff comments. So that, I guess, with that, I'll take any questions.
We don't have any of the, I don't see any of the plans
And
within.
that is on, superintendent of schools is on, and also I saw somebody from the project team was on as well. Allison is on from the project team. They would like to comment. And this was discussed at planning commission. I guess the one thing I should add is the school's request is basically, because they have a loading dock out there, the angle makes it easier for in and out for the loading dock and the use of the semis in that loading dock. So,
Mayor Tom, you had your light on, did you?
Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Ian.
So just a quick question, what is the purpose of us wanting it to be at X angle, and what could the potential detriment of it being at a lesser angle be?
I would just really, Jason, would you mind interjecting? I know this was.
Yeah, so our code, as Matt has said, is one of the things I look at when we're reconstructing or doing things. Our code kind of dictates that, driveway should be, well, all in an intersecting street should be at as much of a right angle perpendicular as possible. The reason that is it's for sight lines. It's for if you're entering or exiting an intersection, straightening over your shoulder if it's an acute angle or looking back is pretty hard. So it's more of a visibility and a safety issue as far as transportation or traffic is concerned. On this one, when I reviewed it, I flagged it obviously because it wasn't compliant per the ordinance. I think the response we had gotten, Matt had mentioned, was there was some issues here with the loading dock. I was not aware of that, but when I looked at the plan, I guess it didn't occur to me that that was the issue here. I was just looking at it from a turning movement on and off of the street and felt that, from an engineering standpoint, they should at least take a look at it. Is there a possibility of bringing this into compliance or not? I don't feel very strongly either way, but it is something that I think has to be addressed if we're going to allow it to exist if it's not in compliance with the ordinance. So I certainly would kind of have to go back and take a look at the plan to see. But I know that was one thing that they felt they wanted to keep it as it was. So.
Ian.
What I'm gathering is it's mostly a safety issue for visibility of when maybe that semi or whatever would be going in and out. It could be hard for oncoming traffic to see. That's the issue.
This is an inbound lane only, so it's not an exit lane. So really the only detriment here would be if somebody was coming northbound with a semi and turning in, it would just be a hard turn for the driver to make. They may have to swing out. The good thing is if they're northbound, they're already on the opposite side of the road anyways, which makes the turning movement a little easier. So again, logistically, just from a turning movement, I think the only thing I would request is if we would allow them to keep that, I would want to see maybe a turning radius presented, where we could see, that the truck can actually make those turns. Not even so much the truck itself, but, I do, when I look at these, have to take into account, we have to get fire trucks in there. And, I'd want to make sure that the fire truck had that turning radius ability as well, if we would allow this. So I would definitely take a little closer look at it if we would consider leaving the driveway configuration as is.
Mayor Tom.
I guess one comment I have is this an issue that could be addressed with the Highway 89 reconstruction, that you could tee up that intersection a little bit better while they're reconstructing the road? I don't know if that's been thought about or not, if you could kind of look at the plans there to see if it would be something easier to do reconstruction-wise as opposed to correcting it now.
We did look at that, and really the driveway driveway apron is perpendicular, it's just the driveway behind the sidewalk meets at a skew angle. So the DOT project really is only concerned about what's happening on the driveway apron or the sidewalk. And after reviewing the DOT plans and the school plans, they actually look like they match up fairly close. And we brought this up as part of one of our comments, and I think their designers did indicate that they understood that, and I didn't really see a need to make a change from the proposed school plans to accommodate the state plans. Obviously, they'll be going first, the state will be doing their work second. But, you know, I did feel like that part of it worked out pretty well, but that was the same thought I had, Mayor Coleman.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jason or Matt on this one? Okay. Sounds like we can move that forward to the next regular meeting then. And now we will move on to number 12, which is convene to close session per state statute 1985 sub 1 sub E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting other public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require, specifically to discuss potential use of city property at 1149 West James Street. I'll take a motion.
Take a motion to go into closed session for the reasons read.
All the party will second that.
Okay, we are now in closed session.
Before we go into closed session, I'm just confused. Are we moving forward with that to just allow the conditional use permit? Like, I don't understand what we moved forward. That wasn't
Yes,
clear.
it's regarding specifically the conditional use permit.
Right, so we're just moving it forward to allow them to have the conditional use permit? Like,
We're moving it forward to the regular meeting for approval. Jason, obviously you can express your concerns to Jason, but he seemed to not have quite as many concerns about it not meeting the current code, but he flagged it for that reason. So, did you have additional concerns, Ian, that you'd like to ask about?
I mean, if it's a potential safety issue, we should make sure that it is safe before we approve it. I mean, at bare minimum, our local fire chief should sign off on it. Like, we should have something before we move it forward to say, yeah, we're good, let's let the school burn down. Like, no, like, we should make sure it's safe.
I agree, Ian. Thank you.
Just
If
for,
it's helpful, I will
Yes.
work with their design engineers to double check all of the turning movements and safety aspects. And if you want to move this forward, we'll present that in the next packet for your consideration.
Thank you, Jason.
just
Is
for
that-
clarification, I mean, if the council was to accept the conditional use permit as drafted right now, is there specific language that allows them to not address the concern, or is there a separate action that needs to be taken of the council to actually permit them to not be in compliance? That's what I think we need clarification on. Attorney Johnson?
Right, you will need to consider if you are going to allow the driveway to remain as presented right now, the city council can grant a waiver to the requirements of the ordinance. This is not a zoning situation, so it's not a zoning board of appeals issue. So the city council can grant a waiver to this requirement if it's satisfied that the safety issues are addressed properly. And then when it comes up on the agenda, there should be a separate action item to address the waiver one way or the other, and then approve the conditional use permit secondly. And then that way you'll have a nice record so that 20 years from now, you'll be able to find out why you did what you did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we need to redo the motion in the second to move into closed session? Attorney Johnson?
No, you're fine.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah, you just need to vote still.
okay. All right. Pat, would you please take the roll?
Gray? This is the roll call for the closed session. Gray?
Aye.
McCabe?
Aye.
Pifferone?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Tome?
Aye.
Adams?
Aye.
Motion carries.
We are now in closed session.
We're gonna end this meeting and go to the closed.
Okay. I should have said that a little louder before we just cut them out, but